to answer where do we go, it depends on what we believe about the world around us and our reality. So from different psychological perspectives, you know, some of the shamanic views would say you go to the spirit world. In the spiritualist tradition, they may say you go to the afterlife. In the Buddhist tradition, they say you go to different dimensions of mind. So it depends on what we believe about reality. Now, my personal opinion is that, and my inner philosopher may come out, so I'll try to keep it short. So one of the strong ideas is that consciousness, so our psyche, our mind, and our self within that, isn't limited to the physical body anyway, and that the way that we perceive reality interacts with consciousness. Some believe that consciousness, it pervades everything, and that everything is consciousness, everything is the universe, and everything is an expression of self. It's a very new age view. And then there are other ones, for example, in physics as well, that says, well, you know, is consciousness intertwined with the molecules of energy? Is there some information in consciousness that when we die, that information somehow exists, maybe not in the way that we think, but somehow it goes on, because information cannot be destroyed, which is one of the hard, fast rules of physics. So if this is true, if somehow our mind consciousness can interact with reality, we have to take into view, okay, then, so are the places that we come out to, is there even an objective reality? Meaning, so objective reality is the one we all experience, our consensus reality, that we can do scientific experiments. If someone in Japan and someone in England do the same experiment, scientifically, they should get the same results, right? Because this is objective reality. So is there an objective reality? Do we just get the same results because, for whatever reason, we're all humans and there are all the same properties in things, or is there something else? So in many spiritual traditions that do believe that consciousness pervades reality in some sort of way, there are different sorts of dimensions and different sorts of realms that you can kind of come out into. And these have subtleties and densities. It's on a spectrum of physicalness, really. And this can be from feeling, when you come out in the OBE, let's say in this reality, it feels very physical. You can put your hand through something and you still get a physical sensation, even though you don't have a hand. You have an energy hand or a light hand. But then you can have experiences of OBEs where you have no physical, no energy body. We call this the astral body at all. You're just a floating point of awareness. So you're more subtle. You have less density, although you still remain. You're the core of your identity, your individual self, is still there here and here in these different dimensions. So we can come out into these subtle different planes. And I mean, Robert Monroe, who's one of the people who first started looking at out-of-body experiences from a scientific perspective in a secular way, said that they were 3 locales. In his early days, he said, there's the physical world, locale 1, and then locale 2, he said, were the astral planes, which was kind of like a duplicate of this world, but not exactly the same, that you can move into. I often point out in Stranger Things when 11 goes into the upside down, if anyone has seen the show on Netflix, it's very similar. It's very similar to the upside down, except without the monsters. So this kind of like duplicate mirror world. And then you have locale 3, which is cosmic planes of existence with completely different physics, completely different cultures, completely different life forms. And this is when you hear about people leaving their bodies, going to different planets, into different star systems, and coming back and their minds being blown. So that would be those types of ones. So there are lots of different places we can go. Most beginners end up popping out into this plane. Not all of them, but quite a few. You come out of your body, you're in your room, and then you wander around your room. I'm like, oh my God, you have access to the universe. Why are you just wandering around your house? And it's because beginners don't know what to do. That they have no idea. And also they're often quite shocked. They're in awe of like, oh my God, I've come out of my body. And that in itself can be very transformative. One of my case studies for my dissertation, the only thing that he did, he sat up out of his body. He was in his room, And he was so shocked, like, this is crazy. He went back to his body straight away. That changed his life. He didn't go anywhere. He didn't see anything. He just sat up out of his body, and he was still had his legs in his physical body. It was only his top half that sat up. And he was in his room, and that changed his life. Never mind these big, great stories of going to different planes. So the impact of these experiences and these different planes that we can go to can be very powerful. And this is the stuff that the yogis have known, the shamans have known, the medicine women have known in many different indigenous cultures. They call it different names and they have different cultural interpretations, but effectively it's the same thing. And all of the main 5 religions, the big ones, all say the same thing as well. They have different names for the astral planes and the different beings that are there from the spiritual perspective.
Yeah, it's one of those things that when you've experienced it, you just know. But before you have experienced it, you can come with all these theories about that. Oh, it's just in your head. It's just your imagination. But I feel when you've been out of your body, you know that you've been out of your body. That's how I felt it. It was so real. It actually felt even more real. You mentioned touching things. I felt that I was smelling and touching things, that it was more, that my senses were stronger. I remember I was just shocked, like I can feel this more than in my physical reality.
Yeah.
What did scare me a little bit, I remember, was that when I was in the vibrational state, I heard some noises and cries that were just so awful. It was almost like it was like a choir who was like screaming and crying and shrieking. It wasn't very pleasant, so I got scared. I think I managed to go it was so many years ago. I think I managed to just, not become afraid and go back to my body. I just accepted it, but it was very unpleasant. So can you speak a little bit about why is that, and the darkness that potentially we can meet? Are there beings who don't want us to wake up? Because that's what I was taught in the course that helped me manage to go out of my body. That there are beings who don't want us to become more enlightened and get this information. So I felt that they tried to stop me or sabotage me. Can you speak a little bit about that?
Yeah, no, that's a really good question. Let me answer the first one first about the different sounds that you were hearing and speaking to that. So it's when we are in the vibrational state or ready to lift beyond the body, it's a bit like a radio tuning. So if you know one of those really old radios and you turn the knob and it kind of goes, and then it'll tune into something that'll be talking about an advert, and then it'll tune into something else and it could be telling a story. So when we are in the in-between space and we're about to shift out that transition, we might hear singing. We might hear one of my students on my courses heard beautiful angelic singing, and she didn't leave her body, but she knew she was tuning into a what she perceived to be an angelic realm. And she said it was so moving, she couldn't embody it. She couldn't stay with it because it was just bringing so much beautiful things up in her. So she before she even got a chance to leave, she snapped out of the altered state. But you can tune into different sorts of places. Now, it could be that we are tuning into a particular realm or dimension with certain qualities and feelings and people and beings, but it also could be we're tuning into an event that's happening related to the things that we're hearing and seeing. So it's not always a bit what we think, what our perception, oh, it's a being or it's a place. And I'll give you an example of that. Graham Nichols, who wrote the book Navigating the Outer Body Experience, as part of it's a very long story. He has on record one of the most evidenced prophetic outer body experiences, meaning he had an experience of the future. He saw the Soho bombing 5 days before it occurred with lots of details. He then told 5 of his researchers what had happened. And 5 days later, everything he said that would happen happened. He saw it in the OBE. But as part of that OBE at the beginning, he tuned into the sadness and the pain that the people were going through at the point of impact when it actually exploded. And he heard all these screams, this chaos, and he was like so scared. But he did what you did, which is fantastic, which is manage to keep calm, not spin our own story over it, and then actually shift out. So sometimes what we think is happening isn't necessarily happening, which is why I call this maturity. So we have emotional maturity as an astral projection. Many beginners have a more immature, which is normal, emotional maturity, which is being scared of everything because you think, oh my God, am I going to be attacked? Am I going to be possessed? Am I not going to come back to my body? Am I not going to die? So we take all of our fears with us. But if we can be mindful and present, we can meet some of these things and they might not appear as they seem. So that was a case as with Graham. Now, the second thing is there are what we call dark OBEs, and a lot of the time they can be shadow OBEs. So a shadow is a term from the psychologist Carl Jung. And I'll just briefly, in case your viewers don't know what it is, the shadow is something we all carry. It's part of our unconscious mind, and it is anything we have disowned, denied, or suppressed about ourselves, and we've pushed it into the background. It's often related to trauma and fears. And so when we have an OBE, because there are many different realms and they are entangled with our own consciousness, we may end up going to places that are landscapes which connect and resonate with a part of our own mind, almost like we are operating on the same frequency, and that's why we have access to them. I often say the places we go is from a prism. So we are the prism, and there's all the juicy stuff in the prism floating about that are us, our personality, our likes, our dislikes, our beliefs, our attitude. And light comes through the prism, and then a rainbow splays out from that triangle. So if we are the triangle, the prism, and the rainbow splays out from our consciousness, the different parts of the rainbow, red, blue, yellow, black, pink, not black, because that's not a color, you can access those astral planes. So if we have part of our prism that has trauma, that will be one of the astral planes we can access. And so you might have a dark OBE, and in that you can actually meet your trauma and integrate it. But most people think that is something scary. I don't want to go there. I don't want to see it. And they run away.
To watch the full video, click the link below, and I would love it if you would subscribe to my channel.